All right, so today we're gonna do just like a chatty life kind of video. I'm excited. I love just chatting with you guys. So grab your coffee, grab a snack, grab a burrito. If you have a burrito, I am very jealous of you. But I'm gonna be sharing 20 lessons or 20 things that I learned in my 20s that I maybe wish I knew sooner. I wish someone told me some of these things. It would have made certain situations and things a lot easier. So I am passing it on to you guys. Not that I'm like this old wise soul or anything. I'm 30, I just turned 30. I just feel like there are, a lot of things that I wish someone had told me sooner, especially like early on in my 20s. And I'm like, why is no one talking about some of these things? And this is like a mix of very practical things and also just kind of like life advice that I've learned up until now. So no matter what your age is, if you are in your 20s, maybe you're in your 30s, maybe you're 50, 60, whatever. If you're like, got all those in the bag. If you are older and feel like you have other advice, feel free to leave that down below for people and myself to read as well. I just think it's crazy, like the changes that you go through throughout the years, especially in your 20s. I mean, obviously that's what I've experienced up to this point, but I feel like your 20s, it's like every couple years you're experiencing something new, learning something different. I feel like professionally I learned the most from like 21 to probably around like 26, but then personally I learned the most 28 to 30, just like about life and about myself and certain things. So I definitely still have a lot to figure out. Everyone's learning and changing every day. So these are just some things that up until this point I think hopefully will be useful for some of you. So if you enjoy this video while you're watching, you can give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. If you're new here, my name is Taylor. I just started introducing myself in videos in like the last year and it still feels weird, but yeah, I'm Taylor. And I just make videos about whatever I feel like. Right now, the last 8-9 months, I've been doing the nomad thing, traveling around. Right now I'm in Italy. So anyways, hello. If you want to stick around, you can, and subscribe. Thank you so much. All right, number one, learn how to negotiate. There are so many points throughout life, not just in your 20s, but especially in your 20s, it's happening for the first time. Maybe you're getting your first car, getting your first apartment, getting your first job, negotiating a salary. There are so many situations where you need to learn how to negotiate and not sell yourself short, especially for women. I found a recent article saying that women still make 83% of what men do, and it's even lower for women of color. I'm gonna leave a couple articles if you're like, I have no idea how to negotiate, I've never had to negotiate my salary. I'll leave a couple articles down below that I found that are really good and that take into account now in like the current situations just with COVID and inflation and everything happening. So before you just ask for a number, definitely do your own research, figure out how to negotiate, what you should be asking for. It's usually like 10 to 20% higher depending on your experience, position, everything. But with salaries, you should never just accept the offer that they're giving you. And not just with starting a new job, but asking for raises. I've worked in a company that had around 500 employees and then some that were more startups or startup labs, and you never know the budget that they're actually working with. So I would just ask. Sometimes I was shocked at what they were actually able to pay. But in those jobs, I had female friends, coworkers who just wouldn't ask for raises or who didn't negotiate their salary. And it just like, it makes me sad for them. And I don't want you guys to do that. Always ask. We all as women can benefit from helping each other out. But besides salary, you should be negotiating for your car, for your apartment, everything. I always go over. This is like something that I feel like living in Jordan taught me is how to negotiate well. But I always go above what I know they're going to accept. And then usually you like land in the middle. So I feel like I'm a pretty good negotiator. I have friends who come to me to help negotiate their leases. When I just recently sold my Jeep Wrangler, I ended up getting dealerships to like compete with each other. And ultimately I actually made money on selling my car. Yes, it's a good time to sell a car right now, but also I did get a very good deal. Number two, credit score. Certain things, when you explain them to people in other countries, you just realize how bizarre of a concept it is, and that is credit scores. We have credit scores in the US, and it affects a lot of things. Getting your first house, getting your first apartment, getting any apartment, getting a car, taking out loans, trying to start a business. Like, it affects a lot of things. So it's important that you start building credit young. This is something that I didn't know and I wish I did. And definitely with my kids, if I have them, I'm going to be getting them a credit card as soon as they turn 18. There are certain things that you can do, like if you're worried about yourself or your child, like spending too much, not knowing how to, budget yet or spend money yet. There are definitely certain things you can do to help out with that. I'll put some on the screen here, but they have also student credit cards. There's a lot of really good options out there if you do research, but you should definitely be starting to build credit when you're 18. So by the time you are trying to sign a lease on your own or make a big purchase, whatever it is, you are able to because you've already established credit over the years. So as soon as I realized that, that's when I got a credit card and started to build my credit. There are other ways that you can build credit, but definitely start young. By the way, I asked you guys on Instagram advice that you wish you had known, and I kind of incorporated some of your most common things into this list as well. So a few of these things are also the most like commonly said things by you guys, and credit score was definitely on there. All right, number 3, there's a time for hustle. And I talked a little bit about this in my YouTube advice video. If you want to learn more about starting on social media now, like in 2022, what my advice is, check out that video. I talked about this in that video a bit, but this is like a topic that I kind of struggle with because I do think that in order to get where you want to in your career, you have to put in the time and effort and hustle, especially at the beginning, like in the first few years. You can't just immediately have amazing work-life balance and an amazing salary. I do think you need to put in like the sacrifice and time. Now I definitely feel like work-life balance for me personally is like my priority, but I'm at the point where I'm at right now personally and financially and career-wise and everything because I did so much and put so much time and effort in to growing all those things in the first 2/3 of my 20s. I think my generation went through this whole culture of like hustle, grind is number one, like you have to be killing yourself. And now I think it's definitely flipped, but I do think there's a balance there. I'm not saying that you need to kill yourself in order to be successful, but I think that you do need to put in like a certain level of effort to get to where you want to be. So I struggle with this one still because I do have definitely like workaholic tendencies. I am still working on it, but I do feel like in the last, especially like year and a half, wow, I cannot believe some of the things I used to do. Work used to be my number one most important thing in life. It was like a huge part of my identity. I turned down so many social things, hanging out with friends, memories. Like I turned down a lot and made a lot of sacrifices. So I think I could have probably like scaled it back a bit and not gone so extreme. Basically, I just think if you are in your early 20s, like out of college, that's the time you're like super motivated, you're excited, you don't know where your career is gonna go. There's like a lot out there. So I do still think that that's a really good time to focus on your career if that's something that's really important to you. Number 4, you can make the time to walk and exercise, and you should. This is something that, wow, I like can't believe it took me literally 28 years to get to this point, but I literally used to be such a workaholic that I thought that walking or like getting outside for a half hour during the day was like a waste of time. I was trying to get everything done and think through like all the things I could be doing in that half hour that I'm wasting time working out or walking or whatever, but trust me, it all comes together. Your mind needs to be in a good place in order to be the most productive with your work and also just your mental health. And walking is a great way to get exercise. And there's also so many benefits of walking. I know it sounds basic, and for some people who maybe aren't like a workaholic type, you might be like, what? But y'all, it took me a long time to be able to just go on a walk every day and be okay with it and not be stressed that I was like walking and wasting time in my mind. A book that I highly recommend if this is sounding like too familiar to you, read the book Rest. Probably out of all the books I've read so far has had the biggest impact and made me actually change certain things. Rest, that book, and Therapy. But in that book, they talk a lot about the benefits of walking, and also they focus on like, you know, famous people throughout history, whether they're artists, CEOs, entrepreneurs, whatever, and what they did and how they got there. And the fact is that a lot of people worked like 4 hours a day just very effectively and do things outside of work that then feed back in and make them more effective and productive in their actual work. Number 5, if you take any practical tip away from this video, invest. You gotta invest, and you have to invest young. If this, what I'm about to say, is new news to you, invest at any point throughout your life. Like if you haven't already and you're 40 listening to this, you still should do it, still do it. But if you invest young, compounding interest is insane. And if you can invest, it doesn't matter anything when you're young. Literally $20 a month if that's all you can do. If you can do more, do $100 a month, whatever that amount is that you can do. Anything is better than nothing, and that will literally turn into thousands and thousands of dollars over the years without you doing anything besides putting it in and choosing where to invest it. There are a lot of different ways you can invest. Most people start with a 401k because usually if you work for a company, they'll give you a 401k, and a lot of them do employer contributions. They'll match whatever you're putting in from your paycheck, which is amazing. Now that I work for myself, I do that to myself. I put the maximum amounts into retirement that I possibly can because that is tax deferred. If you are just starting out, or if you're watching this and you have no idea how to invest, I highly recommend reading the book, The Simple Path to Wealth. He lays it out very basic and gives you like practical, actionable items on how to actually start. A lot of the other books I read are more just like overview and don't tell you like, okay, here's what you should actually go do after you read this book. Here's an example. Jack starts investing $200 per month. So that's about $6, $7 per day when he's 25. By 65, his portfolio is worth more than $520,000. You guys, that's by doing nothing. And that money would have just been sitting there. If you're 35 with that same example, it would be worth about half of that, $245,000. And again, if you're 45, it'd be worth about $100,000. So the earlier you can start, the better. Now I have different ways I invest. I invest through all my retirement accounts, and then I have an individual brokerage account. So that's basically like where you can take whatever you want, just your own money, and it is taxed. That's the difference between retirement accounts and individual brokerage accounts. It is taxed, but that has no cap. You can put as much money as you want in there, and I invest in index funds, and I put in a set amount every single month, and it just goes into those index funds from my bank account. I also invest in real estate, so I have different ways I invest now, but read that book. Also, if your company gives you a 401k, which is great, something I had no idea when I was in my early 20s is that you have to actually log in to that account wherever the 401k is and designate the money to be invested. It's not being invested if it's just sitting in your 401k. You have to actually invest it in something. If your money is just sitting in your bank account, you are at this point literally losing money because of inflation. I just want everyone to know about it because I'm like, you're losing out on hundreds of thousands of dollars right now if you're not investing. I tell all my friends to read that book, and anytime I have a friend who's not investing, I am like, get on that. And for me, this topic is not about like being, wealthy and spending frivolously and all these things. It's financial freedom. It's having the time to go do things you want to do. Having time away from work is what allows you to create memories and to do things other than working. So that's how I view money and investing. It's a way to get more out of life and have more time because you have the finances to do that. Okay, going from a heavy topic to number 6, an air fryer will change your life. I don't know how long air fryers have been around, but I didn't get one until, how old was I? I think like 28. And that is 28 years too late, okay? I'm someone who does not enjoy cooking. I want to eat healthy and I try to eat healthy, but am I losing my voice right now? What's happening? Copy. For me, cooking is just one of those things that I don't find pleasure in, so I don't want to spend forever doing it. And an air fryer has been amazing because you can make healthy foods in it. I put salmon in there, shrimp in there, vegetables. You can put pretty much anything in the air fryer, steak, anything, and it's quick and it's easy. You just put it in, press a button, and it cooks your food for you. And it has truly changed the game for me with cooking. I think it's totally worth the $120, whatever it is, $100. Number 7, you can say no without an explanation. Simply because you're an adult who can make your own choices and you don't have to do everything that comes your way. You can say no. Whether that means in certain friendships or relationships standing up and saying no, or just certain day-to-day things. For me, that's more what it was, is I felt like, especially with work, every opportunity that came my way that would help my career, I felt like I kind of like had to say yes. For example, like going on live TV or doing a speaking thing or doing an interview. I do not enjoy that at all. Like, it massively stresses me out, usually makes my body worse because I'm stressing out so much, and it's just not worth the repercussions that I face like the next week from my body like stressing out that much. And you don't need to have a reason. You can literally just say, thank you for the opportunity. At this time, I'm going to pass. Whatever it is, maybe it's just like certain events with your friends or going to a concert. Like, you don't have to do everything that comes your way. Do things that you want to do. You can leave the party early. Literally, it's all up to you. You're an adult, you make your own time now, and it's up to you to say yes and no to things. So only do things that you actually want to do and that will bring enjoyment into your life. Number 8, there are high interest savings accounts. So if everything I talked about with investing, maybe just like this month or in the next couple months is too much for you, you have too much going on, maybe put it on your calendar, like designate a time in the next few months to figure it out, read that book, open your Fidelity accounts or whatever it is, Vanguard, you can use whatever. Eventually do it, like do it soon. But if you're just like, okay, I can't do this immediately, I think the second best thing you can do is probably put your money into a high interest savings account, because at least it's getting more interest than your bank account. So if you just have your money sitting in Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, whatever, it's earning very, very, very low interest versus a high interest savings account. At least it's earning a little bit more without you doing anything. Another thing that I didn't realize was a thing until I was in my mid-20s. It is so wild to me that throughout all points of schooling, we are not taught these things that are like basic things to help you manage your life and manage your money. We don't have a class in high school. We don't have a class in college that just tells you some of these basic things. Like, I think everyone in high school should have a class that teaches them about savings accounts, how to budget, how to open a credit card when you're 18, like just basic things that in the US you kind of need to know in life. Number 9, this sounds kind of cliche, but trying to live in the moment and genuinely taking in the phase of life that you're in without just focusing on the next thing. I feel like when you're in your 20s, you think there's like kind of like this path. You go to college, you start your first job, you build your career, then you get into a long-term relationship, then you get married, then you have kids, then you're taking care of kids. You kind of have all these big milestones coming up that you're like trying to reach to next. And then as soon as you know it, you're late 20s and maybe you haven't hit those milestones yet, or maybe you don't want to, maybe you don't want to have kids, maybe you don't want to get married. And instead of spending so much time focusing on trying to hit the next thing, literally just enjoy the phase of life that you're in. This is something that I tried to remember every single day. Like I said, I'm 30. I do want to get married. So that is something I want, but I'm also trying to remember every single day that I am not going to be able to do what I'm doing right now for forever. Like right now, I am living out of one suitcase, traveling around to different countries, living in different cities. And that's something that if I told my like 21-year-old self that, I would think was like so freaking cool. And I still think it's cool. For me, it's like my dream. That's like what I wanted to do. But I do feel like it takes a certain level of conscious effort to truly try to live in the moment and be thankful for the things that you're doing every day, and recognizing that you might not be able to do that in a couple years. Your life might look really different, whether it's better or worse or just different. Just embracing the phase of life that you're currently in. And it is hard to do. Like, it's something that you have to actively do. And maybe you're like, okay, I'm not living in a phase right now that I'm like happy with. How do I live in the moment with that? And I've had a lot of periods of times where life hasn't been ideal, but there's always something positive that you can focus on, even if it's just something super small. Number 10, insurance agents are a thing, and they're actually pretty useful and they're free to use. This is something that I did not know until my late 20s. Basically, the purpose of an insurance agent is to help you find the best insurance plans for you. There are tons of different types of insurance, so depending on where you're at in life and what your needs are, they can help you, and they don't charge you. They earn commission by selling that plan to you from the company. They're very useful because, like I said, it's free, and they just do all the shopping for you and then present you with different options, and then you can choose. And they also give advice on like, certain coverage you should have. And if you live in a flood zone, maybe you need flood insurance, like just all these kind of things. This is their job. It's what they do. So they know insurance much better than just like the average Joe would. Also, you can shop around for insurance agents. Definitely read the reviews beforehand. So always do your research, but yeah. Insurance agents are a great resource. Number 11, therapy isn't just a resource for people who have like intense problems or traumas. Therapy can be useful, I think, for everyone. I am such a fan of therapy. It changed my thinking in a lot of different ways. It's also not just for when you have a problem. You can always be learning about yourself and growing and just learning different ways to communicate or learning different ways to deal with certain things going on in your life. So you don't have to wait until you have this like pressing issue. That's kind of what I did. I waited until I was at like my boiling point, and then it was just like a struggle finding a therapist because a lot of them have long waits. Do your research, figure out who you want, get on their wait list, so by the time hopefully you don't have like a pressing issue, but if you do and you really need to talk to someone, they're available. But I'm a big fan of therapy. I highly recommend it to literally anyone. Number 12, read the book The Alchemist. I feel like this is just such a good book to read when you're like 18 and up. It's a parable and it just has so many different life lessons packed into it. It's pretty short, but I took so many notes on that book, and it's one that I have reread and will continue to reread. It's just a good book to read about following your gut, following your dreams. I highly recommend anyone to read The Alchemist. Number 13, when you become of voting age, you don't have to vote how your family voted. I think there's just this kind of like automatic thing that happens for a lot of people where obviously you're raised in a certain way, you're raised with certain beliefs, but you don't have to believe the same things that your parents do or your family does just because you were raised by them. You have your own mind, your own brain, and when you become an adult, you can figure things out for yourself. And you might not agree with everything that your family agrees with. There are certain tests that you can take online that have you like answer certain questions about different topics. If you're like, I have no idea where I actually stand, I want to learn more about myself and what I think and where I stand. There are like kind of quizzes or tests online that you can take to help you figure out where you fall on certain topics. Number 14, cherish family gatherings and take videos. I wish I had taken more videos back in the day or just like growing up of family things, because we have had a lot of family loss in the last 10 years throughout my 20s. Uncle, aunt, another uncle, grandma, grandpa, great uncle. Like you have this idea when you're younger that everyone's going to be around for forever, and it's just not the case. Things happen, freak accidents happen. People aren't going to be in your life for forever. And so having videos is something that I wish I had more of. Obviously back then, like we didn't have, I had like an LG chocolate, I don't even think that thing had a camera. Actually, no, it did have a camera, but anyways, now we have iPhones. Take videos. There's this chart that I saw a few years ago that has always stuck with me since I saw it. But it was basically like how much time you spend with your parents and your family when you're, living in their household growing up, and then how small it gets for most people throughout the years as you get older. And so I just always think about that. Family is really important to me. My family is very spread out now, and it's different. Like when certain people pass away, it's not the same dynamic. It's crazy how just like one person passing can kind of change everything. So if you have a close family, or if you see your family for the holidays at least or whatever, cherish that and take a lot of photos, take a lot of videos, and just keep in the back of your mind that it's not going to be like that forever. And it'll just be different. Like obviously one day, hopefully I'll have my own family and it'll be different in that way, but nothing stays the same with your family. Number 15, this is one that I got from you guys on Instagram from Becca. And I think this is such a good point. Focus more on making memories and less on being judged. And also don't worry about the way you look doing something. She said, whether that's going to dinner alone, working out when you're out of shape, wearing an outfit you don't think you can pull off, trying a new hobby or career that you think you might be bad at. Basically, don't be the gatekeeper of your own joy. Just do the damn thing. And I love that. I think that's something that I'm always trying to work on. There are certain things that I just like don't care about at all. Like I eat alone in restaurants all the time. I travel alone. Like there's certain things that don't bother me, but then there are other things where I definitely feel like I need to learn to just like let go of more, care less about what people think in real life and just like let go. So that's something that I'm definitely still working on, but I think it's a good reminder for everyone just to like not let those moments pass you by because you're afraid of being judged, because the reality is literally no one is remembering besides you. No one. If you're self-conscious about eating alone, just think about the fact that when you're at dinner, you are focused on your own food and talking to the person next to you. You're pretty much never looking around the restaurant, finding one person eating by themselves and like creating a whole story in your mind about what you think of them. Whereas like that might be what some people think when you're eating alone, is like, wow, everyone's judging me, whatever. No, you're doing your own thing. No one cares. Read a book. It's all good. Number 16, another one that was really brought up a lot from you guys, is that your career can and always will change. Yeah, my career has changed a couple times since being out of college, a few times since like what I thought I was going to be doing. Unfortunately, our kind of education system and a lot of other countries are set up in the way that you kind of like need to have an idea of what you want to do when you're a teenager so that you can apply to certain colleges accordingly and then study the right things and like go down this whole path. And the reality is most people don't end up doing what they actually studied. I actually think that it's still important to have a college education. People feel differently about that, but for me it's just like, A, learning how to manage your time, how to see the world differently, how to learn about different topics that you might not learn about if it wasn't for college. See just the social aspect of it, living in dorm rooms, being on your own for the first time with a bunch of different people from all over the place. I still think college is important, but that's just my personal belief on it. But the reality is that a lot of people don't end up doing what they actually studied. But I do think you learn necessary and like useful skills in college that you can apply to different things throughout your life and different careers. But yeah, man, your career is going to change a lot. You don't need to do one thing for the rest of your life. That's honestly kind of, to me, it sounds kind of boring. I'm not going to be doing YouTube forever. I'm definitely not going to be, 50 doing YouTube. Like, I have other things I'm working on in the background right now that eventually will come to full fruition when I decide to quit YouTube one day and stop making videos. So I am, also prepared for another career change eventually. Number 17, post-college social skills can be just as important as academic skills. It's interesting because like when you're studying, you think your GPA is the most important thing and studying and getting grades is the most important thing. But the reality is that I literally don't know of anyone. I'm sure like one job that I applied for out of college looked at my GPA, but after that is more like who you are and your experience and what you bring to the table. I've seen a lot of TikToks that are like, I'm a personality hire. And yeah, like people want other people on their team who they like working with. You can be the smartest person in the world or have like the best experience, worked at Amazon and Google for 20 years. You can have all of those things, but be just a sucky person to work with and you might not get hired because of that. Not only just like being a pleasant person to work with, but also having skills to negotiate, back to negotiating and convincing people and being able to present a topic in front of people, or just like social skills in life, relationships, friendships. Like those things can get you just as far as being smart and having like a good academic background, if not further. Number 18, this was from someone on Instagram and I was trying to kind of phrase something similar to this, and I just really like how she put it. Her name is Rachel. She said, stay in your own lane, but keep watching. You'll learn a lot by being in the background. I really agree with that. I'm a background person. I'm like observing everything. I don't need to be involved in everything. I don't like being involved in everything or being like center of attention, which is funny with YouTube, but like I've talked about before, like I'm literally in a room by myself right now. But people always reveal their true selves eventually, and unfortunately, I've had to learn this lesson the hard way with a couple friendships over the years. You can trust someone and think they're a good person and think that they're just going to do the right thing because that's maybe what you would do. People eventually reveal themselves, and unfortunately at that point you have to make decisions about if you want them in your life or not. But I just think focusing on yourself, staying in your own lane, there's a fine balance of kind of like helping people and then realizing when it's not being reciprocated or they don't have your best interests at heart, and just going with your gut. Sometimes you just like know when someone doesn't need to be in your life anymore. In the end, sometimes people surprise you. Number 19, you can love and appreciate a partner and they can still not be the right person for you. This is something that I had to learn in the last year. I talk a lot about this in a car chat video, so I'll link in the eye down below, and how we came to the conclusion, both of us, to end our relationship. But yeah, you can really love someone and like really appreciate someone as a human, but there can just be certain things that make it so they're not the right person for you for long term. And that's okay. I really think that everyone is in your life when they're supposed to be in your life for a certain reason. And I learned so much in my last relationship about myself and certain things I realized I do need in a relationship for sure. You can really love someone and you don't have to marry them. Even if you've invested a lot of years into the relationship or a lot of time and effort, it doesn't mean that you have to end up marrying them. Go with your gut. That's all I can say. But if you are going through something similar, or you're confused about your relationship, I would, watch that video because I talk a lot about it in that video. Number 20, you know your body best. Someone who has had health issues since I was a teenager, and health has always been a huge part of my life, like the most significant thing I would say in my life, affects every single day, everything I do. I wish earlier on I would have realized that I do know my body best. Again, listen to your gut. You do know your body. If you feel something is off, it's usually off. Doctors, not all of them are great, okay? There are some amazing doctors out there, but there are also some not amazing doctors out there, and always get multiple opinions on something. Don't just go with the first doctor that you meet. Do your own research outside of what they told you. Unfortunately, our healthcare system in the US is very messed up. The pharmaceutical industry is very messed up. You know, it's a whole thing. Try to get help. There are resources out there available if you can't afford something. I'm going to leave Healthwell Foundation linked down below. It's what a portion of the Love You Loads Kindle is donated to, but they help you with medical bills if you have an upcoming surgery, if you need help with prescriptions, whatever it is. If you have a health condition and you can't afford the care that you need, there are just a lot of times where I wish I had listened to myself sooner and put less trust into other people telling me things. I'm now losing my voice. My voice feels like it's about to croak out at any minute now. But those are 20 things that I wish I had known sooner and that I learned in my 20s. I hope you guys found this interesting or helpful. If you have any other advice that you want to share with everyone, definitely leave it down below. If you enjoyed this video, you can give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. But I love you guys. Thanks for watching. See you in my next video.